Hello, wonderful viewers. Welcome back to your channel, Health Trish, your favorite source for empowering information about health and well-being. Today we dive into a topic that affects millions of men around the world but often goes unnoticed, undiscussed, or unnoticed. It's time to have an open and honest conversation about restoring erectile strength to treat erectile dysfunction. If you're suffering from erectile dysfunction and start doing research on potential solutions, you're going to scratch your head, man. The biggest strategies for this condition revolve around managing just this condition. But what about fixing it? They don't really talk about it. There's a lot of data out there about different Viagra solutions. But what we're going to do is focus more on the problem, the pathophysiology and mechanism of how this condition occurs to try to understand its root cause, so you can solve this condition. Many people assume that this is just low testosterone and they just need to focus on that. But there are people who have normal testosterone and suffer from erectile dysfunction, and there are people who have abnormal testosterone or low testosterone and do not suffer from erectile dysfunction. So why is this testosterone part of the solution? But there is more data that I want to share with you. One of the most important molecules involved in erectile dysfunction is this thing called nitric oxide. Yes, nitric oxide. No, our bodies can make it, and you get it from food, but apparently nitric oxide decreases as you get older. It reaches the level of 50%. When you reach the age of 40 years, nitric oxide plays a key role in erection. In fact, Viagra uses specific nitric oxide pathways. Therefore, the most likely cause of someone suffering from erectile dysfunction is related to a deficiency of this molecule, nitric oxide. And what I'm going to talk about today is all the things that fit into this theory. Yes, because the more data that supports this theory, the more true it is therefore. Nitric oxide is manufactured by endothelial cells, which are the cells inside the artery. And so nitric oxide, it has everything to do with helping the arteries dilating the blood vessels. In fact, it's involved in something called endothelium-derived relaxing factor, EDRF. Therefore, nitric oxide helps relax the arteries and increase blood flow, not only during an erection, but also with the cardiovascular system and other systems in the body. So, if you have low nitric oxide, you could have asthma, for example, the more susceptible he is to erectile dysfunction. In fact, a person cannot get an erection when they are sympathetic and in control, as there is a lot of tension. An erection occurs when you are more in control of the parasympathetic system, and when you have lower amounts of tension than when you are calm. This is why men may get erections during their sleep, because they have more control over the parasympathetic system. Now, here's another interesting connection to nitric oxide that has a profound effect on testicular steroids. This means that it helps you produce testosterone. So there is a relationship between nitric oxide and testosterone. If you have low nitric oxide, you probably won't be able to produce as much testosterone. Nitric oxide is also involved in luteinizing hormone. This is the hormone produced by the pituitary gland that controls the testicles, and the amount of testosterone that will produce nitric oxide is also closely involved in sleep cycles, including REM sleep. This may also be why someone who has trouble sleeping, insomnia, or sleep apnea may be at greater risk of developing erectile dysfunction. Nitric oxide also increases insulin sensitivity. This also explains why a diabetic patient who always suffers from insulin resistance also suffers from erectile dysfunction. I mean, if you think about it, what's the sugar spike coming from inside your arteries? It destroys the endothelial level of blood vessels, thus decreasing the amount of nitric oxide produced. People who take statins and prescription drugs usually have lower testosterone or are more likely to develop erectile dysfunction. This may be because statin drugs block cholesterol, a precursor to making testosterone. So the big question now is, how can you increase nitric oxide? Is there a way to do this naturally? The answer is yes. Number one, you can start doing what's called nasal breathing and start breathing through your nose, not your mouth. Apparently, when you do this, you increase nitric oxide, and you can also increase the release of oxygen into the blood by 20% by breathing through your nose, because there is more resistance. There is actually 50% more resistance when breathing through the nose than through the mouth. This appears to increase the delivery of nitric oxide to your lungs and the rest of your body. It also helps you release oxygen. You may think you won't breathe as much, but you're actually releasing more oxygen when you breathe through your nose. Now, if you combine that with number 2, regular exercise, let's say, for example, you're going to do light exercise where you're doing some type of exercise where you're not breathing as intensely. If you can breathe through your nose, you will increase nitric oxide and exercise, improve endothelial cells in your vascular system, which will then improve nitric oxide. Now you can also increase nitrates from foods to improve nitric oxide. Yes, foods that are high in nitrates are beets, okay. Spinach, kale, and any leafy greens are all high in nitrates and will help you increase nitric oxide. Now, of course, on the flip side, you should avoid sugar because it destroys your arteries from the inside. You may want to avoid alcohol as well, because that also reduces nitric oxide. You may also want to try keeping stress low, because stress can suppress nitric oxide as well. And number 5, do things to improve your sleep. Yes, this will help increase your nitric oxide. So these are 5 natural things you can do to overcome the nitric oxide deficiency that comes from aging. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on future content. Also, feel free to leave a comment down below with your thoughts or any questions you may have.